What if you and I had a dream school? Ano kaya yun? Would it have dinosaurs, live experiments, little things that become big? What if we could suddenly see invisible things? Would it have a giant heart or a big, big brain? Or flies into outer space? May sagot sa ating mga tanong, pero tuturuan din tayo magtanong. Okay lang din magkamali, so that we learn so much more. Sa dream school natin, learning is never boring. It's always an adventure. How do we do that? What do we do? With the power of science, art and imagination, all the wonders you will find in the mind is school.
Tara na!
Let's learn all about our amazing world dito sa Mind is Cool! In that inverted bowl they call the sky, we're under, crawling, cooped, we live and die. Lift not your hands to it for help, for it as impotently moves as you or I.
Wow! Fisher! Bigla ka naging poetic. Sa bagay, sa dami ng nangyayari sa mundo at sa bansa ngayon, nakakakalma tumingin sa langit. Nakakamangha.
Yeah, tama Mikey. Pero alam mo ba yung mas nakakamangha pa sa night sky?
I think I know what you're thinking, Fisher. And I know how passionate you are about everything up there, being an astronomer.
Yeah. What's even more amazing is that the stars are made of the same stuff as the things around us. Yung mga bundok, yung puno, yung hangin are all made of the same stuff. And if they're common, that means we can build everything from them. Makes me wonder, how do you build a planet? And what's inside the inside of all things?
Yan ang klase ng curiosity that drives science. So we explore, investigate, and find the answers to those questions. Let's begin. Anong ginagawa mo, Fisher?
I'm trying to make a planet. Ano yung headband mo, Mikey? Ang ganda.
This is theobromine. It is found in chocolate, but we'll talk more on that later. Ano yung hawak mo kanina?
I'm looking at all the ingredients needed to make a planet.
Mountains, valleys, oceans, that sort of thing?
You're on the right track, Mikey. Pero those things are also made of even more simple ingredients.
Tama ka, Fisher. Yung mountains, oceans, and valleys, lahat yon matter. Ang matter ay galing sa Latin words na mater at materia. Ibig sabihin, mother. Para malaman natin kung ano yung bumubuo sa lahat ng matter, kailangan buksan natin, di ba, Fisher?
Tama, Mikey. Pero hindi lahat ng bagay nabubuksan na parang kahon o nabibiyak ng madali na parang prutas. Ang bumubuo kasi sa lahat ng matter ay napakaliit. Mas maliit pa kaysa sa mga cells na bumubuo sa katawan natin. Mas maliit pa kaysa sa molecules na bumubuo sa ating mga cells. Ang maliit na butil na ito, parang building blocks, na kapag pinagsama-sama, ay bumubuo sa ating katawan at sa lahat ng bagay sa ating paligid. Pero ang mga butil na ito, walang permanenteng hugis. Para silang ulap o galaxy. At ang kanilang hugis at laki ay nakadepende sa kanilang energy.
Oh wow, kids! Imagine nyo, mayroong sariling parang galaxy sa loob ng lahat ng bagay.
Yes, Mikey. And these tiny building blocks are called atoms. This comes from the Greek word atomos, nang ibig sabihin ay hindi na kayang putulin. Basically, it means that you cannot cut them or divide them further. Pero hindi na totoo ngayon kasi marami ng ebidensya sa science na may mga bagay na mas maliit pa kaysa sa atom.
Gaano pa kaliit yung pinag-uusapan natin dito, Fisher?
Buti na lang gumawa tayo dito ng isang science kitchen where we have all of the materials that we need to show how big or small an atom is. Tignan natin ang apple na to. Ang apple na ito ay binubuo ng iba't ibang klase ng atoms. Isa na dito ang carbon atom. Kung ang bawat carbon atom sa apple na ito ay kasing laki ng isang kalamansi, gaano sa tingin mo may kikalaki ang ating apple?
Gaano, Fisher?
Actually, kung bawat carbon atom sa ating apple ay kasing laki ng isang kalamansi, our apple will be as big as the Earth. That means if we fill the Earth with calamansi, there will be as many calamansi in Earth as there are atoms in this apple. That's how small one atom is.
Nakakalula sa liit ang atom. Isipin nyo yan, mga bata, kung sobrang liit ng atom, anong experiments kaya ang ginagawa para pag-aralan ng mga ito? Well, science has collected many tools to look into atoms. They range from electron microscopes to instruments as big as a town, like the Large Hadron Collider in CERN in Switzerland.
Ang maganda kasi dito sa pagtrabaho sa CERN, it feels like you're working on the cutting edge of knowledge. Parang we're trying to answer the most fundamental questions about the universe.
Welcome back to Mind is School. Now it is time to take a very special trip to the Large Hadron Collider at CERN in Switzerland with a good friend of mine, a scientist working there, Uzi Perez. Siya ay isang dating mind mover dito sa The Mind Museum, kagaya namin ni Mikey. Because of the time difference, I have to pull off a very special trick. Are you ready? And nandito na ako ngayon sa bahay ko sa Quezon City. And because of the time difference between Manila and Switzerland, it's night here at daytime pa doon. So, usapin natin si Uzi. She's over here at Zoom. Hello, Uzi! Kamusta? CERN is one of the biggest, if not the biggest, science instruments in the world. Why is it so big? Anong ginagawa niyo dyan?
So, pwede mo isipin na parang malaking microscope yung Large Hadron Collider. So, meron ako ditong portable microscope. Pero yung ginagamit ng ganitong microscope, parang visible light lang, na nakikita ng mata natin. So, ginawa ng CERN, lumikha sila ng ring, malaking ring, na madaming magnets. At dito sa, yung size ng ring na yon ay 27 kilometers. Sa sobrang laki niya, nagsaspan siya ng 2 countries. Nasa ilalim siya ng Switzerland at saka ng France. So, imagine mo yung protons nun, i-accelerate to the speed of light, and then we'll smash them. Tapos kung ano makikita natin doon natin makikita yung pinakamaliliit na bagay, mas maliit pa sa atoms. Ang nucleus ng atom ay about, magandang value to na matandaan ng mga tao is 1 femtometer. Imagine nyo na lang na yung hibla ng buhok nyo, yung strand ng hair nyo, 100 billion times smaller than that. Ganon kaliit yung mga bagay na tinitingnan natin.
Grabe, Uzi. So, mas maliit pa sa atom? Akala ko atom na yung pinakamaliit. Hindi ba?
Yun nga parang nung bata ako, sabi ng grade 2 teacher ko, hindi ko talaga malimutan yun. We are made of atoms. Matter is made of atoms. Nothing can be smaller than atoms. Yun yung pinaka-indivisible thing. Pero yung totoo is, meron palang electrons, merong protons, merong neutrons. So yung protons and neutrons, yun yung nagbubuo ng nucleus. Pero yung protons and neutrons mismo, meron pang mas maliit doon. May mga quarks and gluons. So far, yun yung mga basic, yun talaga yung basic fundamental building blocks na nagko-compose natin. At malay natin, meron pa tayong ibang mga particles na hindi pa nadidiscover dahil hindi pa kaya ng teknolohiya natin na makita sila. Ibig sabihin nun, bulag pa tayo sa maraming bagay kasi yung ilaw natin, hindi pa ganun kalakas para makita yung mga particles na yan.
Uzi, what do you like the most about working there at CERN?
Ang maganda kasi dito sa pagtrabaho sa CERN, it feels like you're working on the cutting edge of knowledge. Parang we're trying to answer the most fundamental questions about the universe, what we're made of, how the universe started. Merong mga technological spin-offs. Hindi lang siya parang fundamental questions na walang kwenta. May mga fundamental, may mga technological spin-offs, kunyari, ang World Wide Web na imbento sa CERN. So wala tayong World Wide Web kung hindi dahil sa CERN. And isa pa, nakakatuwa din kasi nakikipag-collaborate ako with different nationalities. And it feels like I'm living in a borderless world just for the sake of science. So that's pretty impressive.
Galing.
And I also like na we're pretty much encouraged to talk about our work in a way na hindi alienating.
Mhm.
So, and I like that because it reminds me of where I started. So I was a mind mover before. So I suppose it never ends, you know, the desire to learn and also the joy of sharing what you've learned. So, like Embel said, once a mind mover, always a mind mover.
That's so inspiring, Uzi. And yun nga, ang dami pang kailangan discovery, no? And I guess
Yeah.
the kids who are watching this will be there one day and walk in your footsteps, no?
Yeah, either here or some other better detector, kunyari linear collider, pwedeng itayo sa Palawan.
Now we know that all matter is made up of atoms, and that science can prove that atoms exist through experiments, like the famous gold foil experiment, performed by Ernest Rutherford and his students, that show that atoms have a hard center called the nucleus. But why does knowing about matter matter? Bakit kailangan natin malaman ng tungkol sa atoms? Ano kaya ang saysay or gamit sa kaalaman na to?
Those are good questions, Pisher. Knowing the answers really does matter. So we know that atoms are made of even smaller things: electrons, protons, and neutrons. These things are combined and arranged in different ways in different atoms. At dahil dyan, mayroong iba't ibang klase ng atoms. One important way of grouping atoms is by looking at the number of protons sa kanyang nucleus dun sa center. Kasi ang dami ng protons sa isang atom ay ang makakapagsabi ng kanyang identity at kung paano ito makipaghalubilo sa ibang atoms. We say that atoms with the same number of protons are atoms of the same element.
Mikey, you're a chemical engineer, right? And you studied all kinds of elements. Ano bang pwedeng magawa sa mga iba't ibang klase ng elements?
Sobrang dami, Pisher. We understand the properties of everyday things like water, air, and our food because we know that they are made of atoms that combine in certain ways. Pag binago mo ang combination ng atoms, what we call molecules, magbabago na ang mga katangian nito. Ang pagkain pwedeng maging lason.
Oh, wow! Talaga, Mikey?
Oo, tingnan mo na lang ang asin o table salt. The chemical name of table salt is sodium chloride because it contains sodium and chlorine atoms. The amazing thing is that pure sodium is a metal that explodes in water, and ang chlorine naman ay isang nakakalason na gas. Pero pag sinama silang dalawa, nagiging asin.
Wow, nakakamangha naman yan, Mikey. Parang magic.
Parang ganun na nga, Pisher. Although it's better than magic because we understand why it happens. It's science. Hindi lang yan. Because we understand how atoms combine, we can put them together to make our lives easier. For example, You have gadgets to watch this show because humans have figured out the properties of one special element, silicone. Dahil alam natin na ang katangian ng silicone, nagagamit natin ito para gumawa ng mga nagpapatakbo ng computer, TV at iba pang gadgets na ginagamit natin araw-araw.
So Mikey, halimbawa ang puno, ano-anong mga elements ang bumubuo dito?
Madaming molecules ang bumubuo ng isang puno. For example, the bark of a tree contains cellulose, while the leaves contain carbohydrates. Marami ring tubig sa puno dahil kailangan nila ng tubig para mabuhay. Now, let's see how molecules mix when it comes to art.
Thanks for tuning into the show, Minded Schoolers. There are so many cool things to learn about molecules, elements, and the things that make up our amazing world. Here are some questions from some of you who are curious to know the recipe for some things.
Gusto ko pong malaman ano-ano ang napakaliliit na bagay sa aking katawan.
I would like to ask, what are the atoms that make up a book?
Great questions, kids. Thanks for sending them in. Let's start with this question. Humans are made up of so many atoms and molecules. We have calcium in our teeth and bones and iron in our blood. These are the elemental ingredients of a human. We have gas molecules like oxygen and nitrogen. Carbon can be found in our proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids or fats. Now to answer the next question. A book has paper that comes from trees. At mayroon itong mga cellulose na may carbon, hydrogen at oxygen atoms. Ang sulat naman ay gawa sa ink na may H2O o tubig. At ang binder ay may glue na isang polymer which also makes up plastics. Now, let's see how molecules mix when it comes to art with visual artist Glorian Rose Dairo. She specializes in digital, ink, and watercolor paintings and hand lettering. Hi, Glory! Thanks for joining us here at Mind School. It's so cool that you do different types of media and I really admire your paintings. I really love how you dabble with your palettes. Your Veins series has really caught my eye. Could you please tell us about the inspiration behind your beautiful work? How did it unfold from your mind to your canvas? And bakit ito yung preferred mong medium?
Veins are the blood vessels that carry blood from the rest of the body back to the heart. This painting process was meant to be a personal exercise to explore feeling and purpose. There was no planning, just the experience of the process. For this Veins project, I suppose the gold leaf came about towards the end and just sort of as like a hint of the hidden blessings and good things that come to us. So there's a lot of experimentation that goes on, testing if and how it'll work if I use it in an acrylic piece or perhaps with gouache, ink, acrylic ink, or even a watercolor painting. So at the end of the day, I guess it comes down to just not being afraid to experiment and of course practice.
That's so cool. When you paint, you already seem to know how water will react to color and on the kind of surface you will paint them on. Paano mo nalaman ito?
Experiment, trial and error, not being afraid to try something different or something new. Just see whether or not it works and practice. So you do your research about the paint and the surface that you want to work with. You learn from others who have more experience and then you conduct your own experiments. If at the end of that you find that it doesn't work, guess what? It's totally okay. So you just tweak and try again if you like. Once you understand how the paint functions and keeping in mind how water just naturally works, it becomes so much easier. So even if using watercolors is not inherently easy, it can definitely still be a fun, enjoyable process. You just have to understand, I guess you could say, how the physics and chemistry behind all of it works.
Thank you so much, Glory, for sharing your artwork with us. That's the superpower of artists. From experience and practice, they already know how materials will work when they combine, and also how long they will last. It's like a big party with all the different materials to produce amazing creative work.
And I'm always up for a party. That's why I'm here. I'm back. That's really cool, Mikey. But knowing what makes up matter is important for another reason. For example, plastic is very strong and can last very long. Like these. Plastic bottles and the like, right? Toys. So we know that they are very useful, but they can also cause a very big problem because they last very long. As we're seeing now with the global plastic waste crisis.
So kung alam natin ito, iisipin natin muna ng mabuti kung gusto ba natin gawin ang mga materials like plastic or how we can improve it. I just love how we learn all about the awesome connections between science and art here at Mind School. So kids, now that you know the recipe for things, the little atoms that make up stuff, you will see everything around you very differently. For example, a chocolate bar is not just a chocolate bar. When you think of chocolate, you probably think of milk, cacao, caramel, and some nuts. But all those yummy things are really parties of carbon, hydrogen, nitrogen, and oxygen celebrating. I love this party on my tongue and in my tummy.
Parang gusto ko rin tuloy ng chocolate.
Oh, here!
Oh, thanks, Mikey. Saving these for later. We see art in very different ways now, right, kids? Mikey, your conversation with Glory reminds us of the wondrous things that art materials are made of. I hope it makes us realize that the materials we often take for granted at work, school, and play are made of amazing things with very special properties.
Absolutely, Pisher. Today, we learned that inside everything are very powerful things that mix to make up all that we see around us. See, itong napakaliit na bagay that we explored are mega powerful. And now, guess what time it's for, Peter?
Ooh, yes! It's time for the Coolness Meter! Lahat ng learning adventures natin for a better normal dito sa Mind School ay may kakaibang coolness. It can be mind-blowingly cool, mysteriously cool, and inspiringly cool.
Our coolness rating for today's adventure is...
Mysteriously cool!
And that's our show for today. Thanks for watching. Join us again in another episode of Mind School.
Our next learning adventure will be about what these things, an apple, your book, your house, your skin, airplanes, what they all have in common. We want to ask you, if everything is made up of atoms, and atoms are very little, bakit hindi tayo lumulusot sa mga bagay kagaya ng pader?
What are your ideas about that? Please send in your answers through our social media account or email address listed here. We'll read out some of your answers on the show. We're always excited to hear from you.
See you next time dito sa Mind School, where learning leads to a better normal.
For more fun science and art videos, subscribe now!